Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by Dark909911. The keys are in that box. First off, I would like to say this is my father's revenge and not mine, but it was one of his best. A little backstory to get you caught up. My father was a welder at a pulp and paper mill on maintenance with a union. There were around 500 people who worked here at the time, mid to late 80s. On my dad's crew, there was a man they called Squirrel because he would take anything small enough to carry and take it home. Some of the things were specialized tools made for a certain machine, and they would have to be ordered in again at the company's expense. I guess there wasn't much the mill could do because somehow the union backed him. It wasn't long before my father's tools started going missing. He knew where to look and found them in Squirrel's toolbox and some scattered on his workbench. Squirrel was an average-sized man, around 5'9" to 5'10", but my father was a huge man standing at 6'5" and around 250 pounds, so Squirrel didn't say a word. He was too scared to. My father reported this to the union rep and the main office and was told they will investigate. Squirrel was given a 1-week paid suspension while the investigation went on. They found many of the missing things in his locker, lunchbox, toolbox, etc. Somehow he got the union to back him again and was allowed to come back to work at the end of his suspension. My father grabbed his mobile welder and went into Squirrel's area and welded together a giant metal box. He took everything he could identify as Squirrel's and put it in the box and welded a top on it. He said he used 5/8 stainless to make it out of. He then got the help of one of his work buddies to lift the box, and Dad welded it to the bottom of the I-beam on the ceiling, about 20 feet in the air. The day Squirrel came back, he was looking for all his things but couldn't find it at all. He asked everyone he could, but no one said a word except, "I take care of my tools, maybe you should take better care of yours." This went on for a couple of hours until Squirrel went into the main office to complain, saying someone stole everything of his. The shop steward and Squirrel walked into the maintenance shop to ask the people in there where his things were. Dad stood up and walked close, and knowing him, he was towering over Squirrel and said something along the lines of, "Squirrels like to climb to store their stuff. Are you sure you didn't climb the I-beam and put your stuff up there?" I guess the look of, "Oh crap," on the shop steward's face was almost too good. But the look of pure horror on Squirrel's face was my dad's favorite part of this story. He would laugh just as hard at every telling when he got to this part. Squirrel went into his work area and looked up. He saw the box up there. He tried to get anyone's help to get it down, but everyone seemed to have important things to do and can't at the moment. Squirrel took a day and a half working alone to get his things from the box and to remove the box from where it was welded. My father said not a thing ever went missing again, and Squirrel worked there another 10 years or more until the mill was shut down. I can say I believe him because one night staying at his place, I got drunk and was thinking about going home. He went to the basement and made a little box and welded my keys in it. I got them back the next day. I miss my father and his stories. I hope this qualifies as pro. Which part of this story do you guys like the most? Welding Squirrel's tools all the way 20 feet in the air on the I-beam? Or taking OP's keys away and welding them in a box in the basement so they couldn't drive home drunk? Let me know in the comments down below. This next story is by Texan Native 71. Do shady thing, fire my boss, hide millions from your client? I don't think so. This happened a while ago, but it's still so fresh in my mind. I left college with a business degree in one hand and no job in the other. And like so many colleges, the promises of alumni willing to give jobs to graduates could not have been further from the truth. So I had to seek out my start from the bottom. I found a good job in operations at a company, I can't say who without giving it away, had a great boss who taught me pretty much everything I needed to know. Work was great and the money was good. I need to explain how the business worked so you can understand how the plan worked. The corporate office was in California and we were not. There are a lot of things that went on at this company, and I can't get into all of them because it would just take away from the story, but let's just say they had a very Stratton Oakmont vibe when it came to sales. I started out working in operations with some of the smaller clients, but with some help from my boss, was able to climb the ladder rather quickly to the point of being over all the operations and order processing for the firm. We had a very large client, 90% of the company's business. The way it worked was we had 2 sets of sales reps, TSRs and CSRs. TSRs were the heavy hitters who reached out to the other big businesses and tech firms to extend their warranties on a product. They made real good money. The CSRs were more of the mom and pop crowd and the inbound sales calls for those that wanted to extend their warranties. The reps were all given codes that associates the client files with theirs, so if someone did a renewal automatically, they would get paid as it was their client. Pretty sweet gig. The client hired the firm to be the middleman for their business to business as they handled all of their everyday clients. For every $100 that came into our firm, 18% or $18 would be for the company and the rest would be sent to the clients with the warranties activated. Most of the clients paid by credit card or pay order with a wire transfer, but there would also be a good amount of checks each week that would need to be processed. A little while after I started, the client check portion was now going to be overseen by one of the sales managers. Didn't really faze me because I was working on the smaller accounts. Since we were a publicly traded company, all the sales reps' orders had to go to operations to be fulfilled. They weren't allowed to process them on their own. This is when things started going downhill. My boss at the time was given temporary access to the financials as they were hiring a new CFO and he had a background with it. We went to lunch like we had done plenty of times before, but he seemed different. When I asked him if something was wrong, he told me that something looked off with our biggest client for one of the accounts. He wanted to make sure before he said anything to the higher-ups. While this was going on, I had been offered the chance to be our new compliance officer, which means I would need to make sure everything was on the up and up. Soon after, I come in to find out that my boss was just terminated for a multitude of reasons, all of which had to be untrue because he was a pretty well-liked guy with not just the company but with our client as well. As I log into my terminal, I see that before he left, he had given me admin access to his files. Here's where things started to pop off. Remember those checks that clients were sending in to renew their warranties? Well, we were cashing them all right. Apparently, we weren't just adding those renewals to their products in the system. That would have triggered a payout to our client who, as you remember, would be getting 82% of that money. Instead, they were cashing the checks, keeping the money, and using the interest in the accounts. Yes, in the mid-2000s, banks actually paid interest to cover losses in their collections department. It was wild to see that this was happening, and something had to be done. So I hatched a plan. First things first, secure a new job because it won't be a fun place to work after this. Done. My previous boss knew of other companies that would scoop me up. Put in my notice and stated in my exit interview that I just couldn't be part of what was happening even though HR was in on this. I wanted it on the record. Next, get approval for overtime for all the operations crew to come in on a Saturday and double pay them. They arrive early Saturday, obviously not too thrilled as to why they're there. But when I explain that if they complete the task, not only do they get their overtime, but they get nice bonuses, they were much happier. They spent the entire day applying all of those checks dated back years to the client accounts. We're talking millions of dollars. When all the sales reps arrived Monday, they were shocked as heck. Not only did they meet their weekly goals before picking up the phones, they made their monthly and quarterly goals too, 2 weeks into the quarter. Cheers, partying, yelling, screaming, celebrating. Except sales management. They went from being really excited to skeptical to confused to oh crap in about 2 hours. They realized where it must have come from, because not only did the company hit all these sales, since it had been over a day, the client came into work Monday to see a very nice payday in their system as well. And like anyone, would have questions, and says they're coming out to congratulate the team on such great numbers. So management starts scrambling because they can't figure out how this happened, and all under my boss's old login. On my last day I arrive and I'm in the lobby. I've got my box for the last of my things, etc. Guy walks up as he's waiting for the elevator with me, and we strike up conversation. He notices my box and jokes about getting fired, and I just tell him I had a great opportunity come up, so I decided to leave before crap hits the fan. We laughed, really nice down-to-earth guy. He realizes we're getting off on the same floor. He asks if I work for X. I say yes. He asks where. I tell him operations, and he reveals that he's the CEO of our client. Gulp. We go our separate ways. Client shows up and there's a big party. Afterwards, the client says they would love to get a breakdown of where most of the sales came from so they can allocate more money to that department. Management says sure, but it made up a lie about how they can't share client payment info due to regulations, blah blah blah. Cue my exit from the company. 2 weeks go by and I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize, so I let it go to voicemail. When I get off work, I checked it to find out it was the CEO of the client where I used to work. He has had something come up and would like to talk to me. Of course, I'm nervous as heck, but I call him back and he picks up on the first ring and we get to chatting for a bit. And he finally just asks me, "Why did you leave?" I tell him I had a great opportunity come up. He doesn't buy it and says that apparently my comment about crap hitting the fan really stuck with him and he thinks something more is going on. So after a little more prodding from him, I tell him, just look at collections and that's all I can say. He thanks me and I hang up. 2 days later, he pulled the plug on the account. Apparently my old company tried to threaten him with a lawsuit for pulling the account 3 years early. He replied with, "That's fine, because when I show the courts that I have evidence that you committed fraud," corporate came in and cleaned house. All of management was fired within the day. 1 month later, my friends and I had a very memorable trip in Vegas, all courtesy of our old client. Epilogue, best part, I guess this should have been part of the story. My old boss was an adopted kid, treated his adopted parents great, while their real kids didn't, and when they passed, they left him all their money. All of it. This was about 2008. He was in a weird place because he loved his parents and he was really close to them. He went to his church to pray for his parents and for what to do with this new landfall of money. He loved working but didn't need to anymore. He left the church and went to a bar because, who doesn't? He sits next to a guy who, and this is almost out of a movie, is a developer and has run out of money to finish his development because it's 2008 and no one is loaning money. They get to talking and he thinks, maybe this is a sign. I'll speed this up because I've got to run to work, but he invests in the guy's development by buying all the houses, dirt cheap at the time, and now lives off the residual income from all of them being rentals. Life sucks because so many people do bad things and get away with it, that it's great when good things happen to good people. At the very end there, I don't know if I've been spending too much time around games or whatever, but when they said they're a developer, I wasn't thinking land developer for some reason, but honestly, that's a really awesome story about how you buy all this property cheap, especially in 2008, and you're probably set for life after that. And our final story of the day is by Let's Not and Say We Did. Mean animal people kick me out of kitten volunteering, but then use my copy for the ads without even checking. I live in a fairly remote, medium-sized town, and the RSPCA moved out, and now we have a local woman tending to all the stray animals with a team of volunteers. Problem is, she's a Karen and has several Karens on the team. I found some stray cats and I contacted her, and she agreed to advertise and sell them after getting them desexed. I chose one of the kittens for my son and went about adopting him through the organization. Of course, he's the cutest one, and guess what? One of the Karens wants him too. So the pair of them ganged up on me and wouldn't accept my paperwork, claiming that I wasn't allowed to have 2 cats at home, even after I showed them completed paperwork from my estate agent. They then threatened to call the police to collect the now desexed cats and warned me that my foster child had better look healthy or the police would take her too. Well, I've had a long day of them hassling me, and when it came time to write a description of the kittens, I might have had some devil horns on. I named the kittens after the characters from It's Always Sunny, and their descriptions match. Mac likes wrestling with the guys and Charlie's the wild card. You get the picture. These stuffy old cows can't work out while everyone's laughing reacting to their posts, and they're mad. And it feels good. I delivered the cats to one of the other volunteers and told them to never contact me again. I'm definitely a big fan of It's Always Sunny, so just looking at whatever portal, whatever website, and seeing all the cats or animals named after these characters from It's Always Sunny and matching descriptions and stuff, honestly, that would be good fun, and I think that might be conducive, if you find the right people, to maybe getting those adoption rates up. You get like a really good name out there and it connects with somebody, that person might get easily attached to whatever animal that is and might want them more than they ever would have otherwise. It's not a bad idea. But with that being said, that's a wrap on another bunch of stories here today. As always, if you guys have any favorite videos of this bunch, let me know which one in the comments down below and why. And if you enjoyed the stories in general, if you could subscribe to this channel, it'd mean a lot to me. I make these videos daily, and it's by far and away the best way to support my channel. So no matter what you did, whether it was subscribing or liking, leaving a comment, I just appreciate the heck out of you guys. And as always, I'll be back tomorrow with even more stories right here on the Storytime channel.